How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, Mystic Watch. So previously I made my first SAO Alicization video, which went over the first episode of Season 3. Now this video and most of my future videos will be based more on the concepts within SAO rather than episode reviews themselves. So for today's video, I'll be explaining the brand new full dive machine known as the Soul Translator, or STL for short, as well as Fluctlights. I'll be staying away from spoilers for the most part. There are one or two spoilers in the video, but I give you I'll give you a warning right before I give them. So, if you are trying to watch this video as a spoiler-free video, you can do so. But if you want to know the full information behind the Soul Translator, there will be partial spoilers. But I don't think any of the spoilers are anything so big that, it's not going to ruin the show for you in any means. They're not related to the plot. It's just kind of like things that haven't been told yet, so therefore are considered a spoiler. So let's get into it. If you do enjoy these type of videos, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more content. To start off, the Soul Translator is the 4th generation of full dive machines, following the Nerve Gear, the Ambusphere, and the medicuboid. In order to explain the Soul Translator, I first have to explain how the previous generations of full dive machines work. As we all know and love, the Nerve Gear was the first full dive machine that was commercialized and mass-produced. The way the Nerve Gear itself functioned was that the machine has high-density microwave transceivers that were capable of accessing the user's brain, which allowed it to send fake signals to the 5 senses of the user. To put it in normal people language, imagine if your brain was a radio, and the Nerve Gear was the radio station. So the Nerve Gear is sending you this information, and the brain is essentially tuning in on it. The second part of the Nerve Gear is that it can block all the movement commands from the body going out. That way, if you're trying to punch a monster in the game, you don't actually swing your arm randomly and smack someone in your house. So once the Nerve Gear turns on, your body is completely immobile. That's pretty much all I needed to explain when it comes to the Nerve Gear. The next machine I want to go over isn't the Ambusphere, but the medicuboid, since the Soul Translator is based a lot closer to that rather than the previous generations. This machine was the 3rd generation of full dive. The difference between this and the Nerve Gear was that the medicuboid didn't just connect to the person's brain. The entire machine was integrated to the bed and connected from the head all the way down to the spinal cord. If you guys recall from Season 2 of the anime, this is the machine that Zekin, or Yuki, was connected to during her time spent sick. Because of the bigger machine, there was more processing power and allowed interaction with deeper parts of the brain. This, therefore allowed improvements to the user's reflexes and reaction time. The purpose of this machine was for medical patients, specifically those in terminal care, since it allowed users to connect to cameras and other external devices so that they can interact with the real world. Now that is the background information that I just wanted to get out before getting to the main part. The Soul Translator is based on the design of the medicuboid, however the function of it is entirely different. The function of the STL does contain a minor spoiler, but nothing that people wouldn't already figure out or wouldn't be explained within the first few episodes of the anime. In case you don't want to hear, like I said before, I would mute the video for a few seconds and wait for the screen to indicate the spoiler is done. So I'll give you a few seconds to count it off. 3, 2, 1, okay. So the function of the STL is to develop highly adaptive artificial intelligence. Unlike previous methods of creating such AI, which relied on the use of existing computer architecture for the AI to accumulate experience via simple questions and answers. So, to put it simply, the current AI that we have, or at least was in SAO, would just gain knowledge based on things that we did or questions that we asked. So, if we said, I like the color blue, and then you ask the AI, what color do I like? The AI would say blue, because you said it. So, based on that type of concept where you would say questions or answers and information would be stored into the AI and then the AI could spit it back out. But this AI that would be used for Project Alicization is based on the structure of the human's brain. In order to create an AI with awareness and adaptability level of a human. Okay, so spoiler done, and let's continue. The STL doesn't work the same way the previous machines did. By connecting to the brain and sending it signals. The difference is the STL communicates directly with your soul. Yes, your soul. But specifically your Fluctlight. So explaining the Fluctlight is pretty complicated. So buckle in, because most of this flew right over my head the first time I read about it. So to put it simply, the Fluctlight is the essence of the human consciousness or soul. Now the nitty-gritty stuff is that inside the nerve cells of humans there's a light particle known as the evanescent photon. These light particles exist in a state of indeterminism, which means that actions might happen without a cause or a reason, and they fluctuate according to the probability theory. These fluctuating lights were then named into fluctlights for short. To explain the exact science is somewhat complicated because all this stuff falls under the category of quantum mechanics, which is way above me. But to dumb it down, there's essentially light particles in our nerve cells, and the collection of those light particles is what is believed to create our consciousness, or in other words, our soul. Like I said before, the STL communicates with the soul instead of the brain, which therefore gives us different results than the previous full dive machines. I explained it previously, the actual differences in the machines, but now I'll explain the differences in the experience of the ones using the machines. So the Soul Translator is capable of recording the spin and vector of each photon, which is essentially, it's just how we can obtain information from those photons, right? So it's not really relevant to anything, so don't worry about it. But pretty much it can obtain those spin and vector information and translate that into something that is readable by both the computer and the diver. Now, the previous full dive machines used polygons as the base of the 3D models in their world. What this means is that all the different things inside the virtual world were actually made of small geometric-like shapes, things like triangles and squares and so on. So everything that is in a virtual world, Aincrad, GGL, those things were all made from little tiny shapes. Now the STL, on the other hand, creates the virtual world on a new method known as the mnemonic visual data, or optical memory information. I realize there's a lot of big words here, so bear with me. To make this easier to understand, the best way to describe it, it's like how Kirito did in the first episode. Whenever we have dreams and remember those dreams, while we're in it, it doesn't actually feel like we're dreaming at all. Everything we're experiencing in that moment feels real, and that's the basic concept of the STL. Instead of creating a virtual world and sending fake signals to our brain like the previous generations, the STL creates memories and it implants those memories into our Fluctlights. The STL also has the capability to create memories from scratch, which is why Underworld is able to exist, and that's kind of the whole basis for this entire season. So to sum it all up, whenever someone is inside the STL, it will not feel like a virtual world to them. Even if they know it is, everything they feel, touch, smell, and so on will be as if it was actual reality. The last thing I wanted to go over before ending off the video is the Fluctlight acceleration that Kirito also mentioned in the first episode. So the Soul Translator has a unique ability called the Fluctlight acceleration, or FLA for short. Without going too much into the science behind it, because I know most of you are already bored of that, inside the Fluctlight there is a pulse known as the thought clock control signal. Pretty much how we can manipulate our sense of time. For example, if you're catching up with an old friend, time seems to fly by. But if you're trying to, leave school or work, it seems like time moves extremely slow. So the FLA is based on that concept, and it can speed up the thought clock control signal, allowing people to handle calculations faster, thus making the flow of time slower to that person. Now this next part does contain some spoilers, so same deal. If you don't want to listen to it, I'll count you guys off and to mute. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, so Kirito mentions that in dreams, it can feel like several hours have passed by, but in reality it's only been a few minutes at most. So the STL has the ability to accelerate time by up to 5,000 times that of the real world. But, while humans are in there, they only set it up to 1,500 times due to safety measures, since the Fluctlight itself has a lifespan of 150 years. Meaning that if I'm in the machine and 1 year passes, right? 1 year passes and my body's in the real world for a year, it aged a year, whatever. But my Fluctlight accelerated at a speed of 5,000 times that. And that's insane. So for that specific reason, they're not going to set the acceleration to 5,000, which is why the limit for when humans are inside are 1,500, but no one's going to be in there for a year. It's just something to keep in mind. The Fluctlight has its own lifespan of roughly 150 years, and for that you cannot accelerate it. So a human being with the age of 10 can have a Fluctlight of 100 years if they were inside this STL being sped up to a certain point. And in this specific manga chapter panel thing, Kirito says that he was only being sped up by 3 times, or at least in his assumption he was being sped up by 3. But in reality, that number is whatever. But yeah, now you get the idea of how fast this FLA can actually work. Okay, so that's everything and possibly too much information on the Soul Translator and Fluctlights. I actually could have went more in depth with the science, but I know no one was really here for that, so I'll spare you guys the lecture. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed the video. I plan on continuing doing content like this for SAO Alicization. However, it won't be as crazy informational as this video was, just due to the nature of the STL. There's a lot of science to explain behind it. It was kind of the whole nature, right? So if you did enjoy this video, consider smacking that subscribe button and liking the video to support the channel. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.